Good afternoon, everyone. I welcome all of you to today's press briefing at the EMA in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands. My name is Marie-Agnes Heine, and I'm the head of the Communication Department of the European Medicines Agency, EMA. As you know, we are holding these regular press briefings since a couple of months to update you periodically on the most recent developments regarding COVID-19 vaccines and treatments. Please note that today's press briefing is the last one before the summer. But as this pilot was very successful, we plan to resume with these regular press conferences in early September, and you will receive an invite as usual in due time. So let's get started with today's press briefing. I'm delighted to have two colleagues here with me in the room today. Dr. Fergus Sweeney, the head of Clinical Studies and Manufacturing Task Force, and Dr. Georgi Genov, the head of Pharmacovigilance. A third colleague, Dr. Marco Cavalieri, the head of Biological Health Threats and Vaccine Strategy, is connected remotely. Please note that your microphone is disabled by default for the duration of the briefing. Initially, Dr. Cavalieri will provide you with an update on recent developments. Then we will have about half an hour for questions. Today's briefing is being broadcast via YouTube and Europe by satellite. The footage can be used free of charge by all media, and you will find the respective links in the invite you received. I'm now handing over to EMA's Head of Biological Health Threats and Vaccine Strategy, Dr. Cavalieri.
Thank you very much for joining us for this briefing today. I would like to run through a few important updates since our last briefing. Firstly, I would like to stress that we are continuously monitoring the mutations of the virus and the possible impact on the effectiveness of the COVID-19 vaccines. In view of the rapid spread of the highly contagious Delta variant that is raising concerns not only in Europe but also around the globe, it is extremely important to vaccinate as per national recommendations as many people in Europe as possible. In a statement on COVID-19 published jointly with the European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control yesterday, we highlight the current pandemic situation in the EU and urge EU citizens to protect themselves by making sure that they complete their vaccination course. The statement also addresses the question of whether a booster dose will be needed after completing the recommended vaccination course. On this point, it is currently too early to confirm if and when a booster dose will be needed, because there is not yet enough data from vaccination campaigns and ongoing studies to understand how long protection from vaccine will last, also considering the impact of the spread of the variants. EMA, in any case, will review all these data once they become available as quickly as possible. Let me reiterate that the 4 vaccines authorized in the European Union provide a high protection against all the strains that are currently circulating in the EU, especially against severe disease and hospitalization. However, preliminary data suggest, as expected, that both doses of a 2-dose COVID-19 vaccine, like the Comirnaty Spikevax, which is the Moderna vaccine, or Vaxzevria, are needed to provide adequate protection against the Delta variant. This makes it even more important that people complete their vaccination course as soon as possible, keeping also the interval between the doses close to the shortest that has been recommended. It is also premature to foresee the need of adaptive vaccine with a different composition in order to tackle the emerging variants. However, work is already in progress to investigate variant vaccines, and the EMA is actively engaging with manufacturers to establish development plan that can deliver sufficient clinical data for any future regulatory action if it becomes necessary. Secondly, I'd like to briefly run over some of the outcomes of the meeting of our safety committee, the PRAC, which took place last week. After a careful review of all the available data, the PRAC concluded that myocarditis and pericarditis can occur in very rare cases following vaccination with Comirnaty and Spikevax. The product information will be updated to include myocarditis and pericarditis as side effect of these vaccines. It is important that healthcare professionals and the people coming for vaccination are aware of these risks and look out for possible signs or symptoms of myocarditis and pericarditis. The available data suggests that the course of myocarditis and pericarditis following vaccination usually improves pretty rapidly with rest or treatment, in line with the typical course of this condition. As for all vaccines, EMA will continue to monitor the vaccine safety and effectiveness and provide the public with the latest information in a timely manner, particularly as more adolescents and young adults are vaccinated and more second doses are given. The agency will take necessary actions if any new safety issues are identified. Looking more specifically at the safety of vaccines, we have seen a lot of misinformation and disinformation circulating online with regard to the safety of authorized COVID-19 vaccines. We are even seeing posts on social media misappropriating our logo to highlight inaccurate data and serve anti-vaccination claims. We have also noticed a lot of misinterpretation of the data publicly available on the ADR reports website, which is the official source of information for reports of suspected adverse events in the European Union. To address this, we have revamped our monthly safety updates for all authorized COVID-19 vaccines to include the number of individuals who reported suspected side effects after vaccination, including cases with a fatal outcome. It is, however, essential to understand that these reports describe suspected side effects, which are medical events observed following the use of a vaccine. But the fact that someone has had a medical issue or sadly died after vaccination does not necessarily mean that this was caused by the vaccine itself. This may have been caused, for example, by underlying or emerging health problems not at all related to the vaccination. EMA and the member states continuously monitor this report to detect any new safety issues. These safety updates describe all the issues that have been linked to vaccination following the assessment of emerging worldwide safety data by the EMA Safety Committee, the PRAC. We are committed to ensure that any new suspected adverse reactions are rapidly investigated to support decisions based on science that can strengthen confidence in vaccines, which is so important during the devastating pandemic we are facing. While we have seen a lot of progress with COVID-19 vaccines, we also need effective treatments to save the lives of those becoming ill after being infected and bring the pandemic under control. Many people are still being treated in hospital with symptoms of COVID-19, and there is an urgent need for additional treatment options. We are strongly supporting the European Commission therapeutic strategy by expediting the review of promising therapeutic currently under rolling review, while maintaining the rigorous EU standard for safety, efficacy, and quality. As you are aware, we are currently evaluating an application to extend the marketing authorization of one medicine, Olumiant, based on the drug baricitinib, and 4 monoclonal antibodies or antibody combinations are under rolling review as we speak. The rolling review will continue until there is sufficient evidence for a formal marketing authorization application, which we expect will happen later in the year. What is positive is that indeed there is an active pipeline of new and promising COVID-19 therapeutics for use both in early stage COVID-19 patients outside of the hospital or for sicker patients hospitalized with more severe COVID. And we expect that these agents will come through this year, and we discuss these products more. EMA will continue engaging in active dialogue with developers of promising candidates to make sure they can generate the clinical data that would allow a rapid approval thereafter. And finally, the EMA Human Medicine Committee, the CHMP, is currently evaluating an application to extend the use of the vaccine Spikevax to include young people aged 12 to 17. We expect that the committee will reach a conclusion at the end of next week. I will stop here and happy to take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cavalieri. And now we are open up the floor for questions. If you wish to ask a question, please click on the icon at the bottom of the WebEx window to raise your hand. When I give you the floor, please unmute yourself and turn on the camera. You can then start and ask your question. Let's have a look who is actually on the line. So far, obviously, there is no question. Now some questions are coming. So let's start with Naomi Kreske from Bloomberg, please. Naomi?
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for taking my question. Wondered if you could give us an update on the potential application from CureVac for their mRNA vaccine. Kind of at what stage is this? Do you anticipate moving this on from rolling review at any point in coming weeks? Thanks.
Thank you very much. Dr. Cavalieri, please.
Yeah, so the vaccine CureVac, as you know, released data from their pivotal clinical trials very recently. And as you know, this vaccine is undergoing rolling review as we speak. So the next important step will be that CureVac will collect all the clinical data coming from these trials, including many specificity around the immune response and other clinical data. And all this data will be submitted for review later on, probably towards the end of the summer. At that point in time, according to the rolling review cycles, we will make a review of all this data and we will see then what could be the next steps.
Thank you very much. The next question is from Ludwig Burger from Reuters. Ludwig, please.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask about the debate on the correlates of protection, please. So you've been involved in that. There are two approaches to this. One is looking at absolute values of absolute antibody levels, titers in the blood, and the other one is to actually have comparison between the one for experimental candidates versus authorized. So which one of those two approaches are you looking at? And lastly, on the way to having reliable correlates of protection for future approval, what are the main challenges or concerns that you still see? Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a question for Dr. Cavalieri, and perhaps, Marco, you can explain a little bit more also for the benefit of the others.
Yeah, indeed. So correlates of protection means identifying a certain amount of an immune marker that will be correlated to protection. So in other words, if there is an immune response that reaches that level of that specific immune marker, it would mean that in principle, the individual is protected. And that is what has been established for many other pathogens and for many vaccines over the years, even if we do recognize that it's not always obvious to find a correlate of protection. And indeed, there are many vaccines that even after decades of use, we have not been able really to establish a correlate of protection. So where we are now with COVID-19, all companies have put effort and also academic groups have put effort in trying to understand what could be a correlate of protection, but so far has not been possible really to determine precisely or to show convincingly that any level of any specific immune marker would be then linked to protection and could be used indeed as a marker or a surrogate endpoint for efficacy. What we've seen, however, is that neutralizing antibodies seems to have a correlation with protection, and that is the type of immune marker that most of the researchers and manufacturers are looking into. So in case a correlate of protection is not established, as we have done in the past with many other vaccines, it might still be possible to approve next generation vaccines based on level of a certain immune marker, doing what we normally term as an immunobridging study, in which we compare the immune response for that specific immune marker of the new vaccine to a vaccine that has been already authorized and that has shown efficacy in clinical trials. And this is essentially what we are working on at the moment with many companies that are bringing forward their development plans, understanding that conducting placebo-controlled trial will become more and more problematic. And actually in the European Union, it is already difficult to conduct, particularly in certain groups. One of the issues is, of course, is having access to the comparator vaccines, because that is not possible at the moment. And we are trying to understand what can be done in order to facilitate the availability of vaccine supply that could allow the conduction of such clinical trials.
Thank you very much. The next question comes from Thomas Migliarina from Swiss Radio. Thomas, please.
Yes, grazie, Dr. Cavalieri. I was puzzled by what you said about the EMA logo being abused to spread disinformation. I mean, I'm not an expert, but this sounds like a crime to me, given that we're talking about health. And I was wondering whether the agency is taking action or this is for someone else to do. And also, I was curious to know if you have any update on the famous issue of the Sputnik vaccine. I've read that you were still missing some crucial information. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I give both questions to Dr. Sweeney. Dr. Sweeney, please.
Thank you very much. Indeed, the public and ourselves as agency and the European Commission have to be very wary of disinformation that is circulating, and the people circulating this information, unfortunately, can be quite sophisticated in misappropriating logos and styles of websites or official documents to try and make their disinformation look as though it's from an official source. So people should always refer to information on the EMA website or the Commission website or that of a national competent authority as the authoritative source of information, and is why we are being as transparent as we can be and improving our transparency constantly to make sure that information is there as a reference to the public domain. We do work closely with experts in the Commission in this area so that they can follow up on incidents like this and make sure that we spread the good information and have it ready for the public. As you say, this is potentially a crime and certainly an act which shouldn't be carried out, and we need to refer everybody to the good sources of information. Thank you. And on the second question then, regarding the ongoing rolling review for the Sputnik vaccine, as with any other vaccine, this is a very structured process where the applicant submits data, we review that, we carry out inspections, they reply to our questions, they have to carry out follow-up to whatever findings there are from the inspections, and this goes through a constant structured process. How long that takes in each vaccine case depends on the complexity of the issues and how long the applicant would need to reply to the issues and what further follow-up there might be based on that. So we are in that process at the moment. It's ongoing. All vaccines are treated equally in that respect, and we look forward to the outcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question comes from Helen Collis from Politico. Helen, please.
Thank you. I was wondering, have you had any discussions with Regeneron or Roche about their antibody cocktail, casirivimab and imdevimab? I know it's under rolling review currently, but a study in the UK showed that it had effect on hospitalised patients who haven't mounted an immune response themselves. And there seems to be no access for people to get it in this patient group because it doesn't have an authorised indication there. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Dr. Cavalieri?
Yeah, indeed, this cocktail from Regeneron Roche is under evaluation, as you correctly said, according to rolling review. This rolling review is advancing quite rapidly. Indeed, as you know, this cocktail has been studied in clinical trials in different type of use. So either in post-exposure prophylaxis or in patients with early mild COVID-19 that are not yet hospitalized, but that are at risk of progressing to severe disease. And then there are also these data that have been emerging from the recovery study in the hospitalized setting, which indeed are quite important data. So now we will be assessing all this data, starting from the studies in the outpatient setting and the post-exposure prophylaxis, and then we will see by when it will be possible to start granting marketing authorization, which we would expect would happen for sure before the end of the year or even earlier.
Thank you very much. We now have one remaining question, so everyone who still wants to ask a question should raise their hands. So the last question for now comes from João Guerreiro from Portuguese Radio Notícias. João, please.
Hello, Mr. Cavalieri. I would like to hear you on a possible update on Janssen vaccine. And if you are aware that in Portugal, there are reports of groups of people fainting after being vaccinated with the specific batch of Janssen vaccine, and if EMA has similar reports from other parts of the EU.
Thank you very much. I'm going to give this question to Dr. Genov. Dr. Genov, please.
Okay, now we obviously, as for all vaccines, we closely monitor all new emerging safety information. I'm not aware of specifically of this cluster of events in Portugal, but we will, of course, look into details. It's not unusual in young people to have described side effects of syncope or fainting, so it might well represent a well-described side effect, but certainly something we will look into. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have another question from Ulrike Bartholomeus. Ulrike, please.
Yes, hello. I have a question also concerning CureVac. As you said, Dr. Cavalieri, you do not expect that the company will submit all the data by the end of the summer. Are there already did you already ask some questions to CureVac that they will answer, or did they not yet submit all the data from the Herald trial?
Thank you very much. Dr. Cavalieri, please.
Yeah, I think what I can say is that the agreement with the company is that all these data are collected, so we have good granularity on all the clinical evidence that is coming from the Herald study, including additional analysis such as immunogenicity, and then all this data will be submitted for review by the EMA so that we will have a comprehensive overview of what this study is telling us. And after that, we will see if we have additional questions for clarification as we normally do, and we will see what will be the next steps.
Thank you very much. The last question now comes from Kiran Randava from Good Morning Britain. Kiran, please.
Hi. Sorry, apologies if you've already covered this. I missed the first couple of minutes of the meeting, but could you please give an update on the Indian-made version of AstraZeneca, Covishield, and where is this in terms of being approved?
Thank you very much. Dr. Sweeney, please.
Yeah, so thank you. And perhaps if I could understand that this is being asked in the context of the recognition of different vaccines for purposes of travel between member states or into the EU. So the first thing to emphasize is that the recognition of vaccines for that purpose is the role of the European Commission and the member states. And indeed, the European Commission has good information on its website. And if I may quote from that, I think we can share the link. It says, among other things, that member states have the option to also accept vaccination certificates issued in relation to vaccines that have been authorized at national level or by the World Health Organization. The role of the European Medicines Agency, by contrast, is to evaluate marketing authorization applications for vaccines for authorization and use in vaccination campaigns within the European Union in member states. And I can say that for the particular vaccine, Covishield, we have not received a marketing authorization application at this point. And you will know if we do in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'm now closing today's press briefing. Thank you very much for your attention. And a big thank you to my colleagues who participated today. And if you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to follow up with the press office or check our website. And you know our email address, press@ema.europa.eu. So thank you very much and have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.